Hey fellow backyard warriors, Nick here. We're going back into the archives today and making a couple of Flintknapping tools. We're going to be starting off by making some pressure flakers. These are also known as ishii sticks or retouchers. Basically, it's a pointed tool that's designed for pressing off flakes when you're Flintknapping. There are lots of variations on this. Today we're going to be doing a very simple version. This is pretty much the same as my first set of pressure flakers. The first thing you need is a piece of wood for your handle. I'm going to be using a piece of poplar dowel today. This is a 3/4 inch dowel, though you could use pretty much any branch or any size dowel, though for this particular type of flaker you don't want to use anything thinner than this because it's easy to split it out unless you drill a hole first. Next you're going to need a nail of some sort. I've got two different sizes of nails here and I'm going to be making two different flakers. One's going to be a little bit wider and will be a good general purpose flaker, and then this one will be good for touch-ups and for doing some notching. Now these are steel nails. Steel nails will work for this. They tend to slip a little bit more than copper, and you can find copper nails. And if you have a copper nail available, you should go ahead and use that. Now Ishii was known to use iron nails, so these soft steel nails will work for this. So the first thing I like to do is just wrap a piece of paracord on the front of the flaker. You want this to be fairly tight and about as far as you think the nail can possibly go. I've got this secured. I'm going to move everything up just a little bit, just a little closer to the front. Make sure it's pulled tight. Now we can drive our first nail. So you want to get your nail as centered as possible. Again, you want to try and drive it as straight as possible. Okay, so now I'm just going to remove my wrap. There it is. Okay, so I've gone ahead and cut off the tip. Now I'm just going to take this on my anvil and straighten this out a little bit. Bring it over to the edge of the anvil. You see there's a bit of an angle here. And I'm just going to strike it, turn it, strike it, turn it, strike it, turn it, strike it. Now that I've got a rough point hammered in, I'm just going to take a file and smooth it out. This will also help get rid of any cold shuts that I have or any pieces that might come apart. Alright, here it is. So now I'm just going to take my rasp, round off the top and the bottom just so it's a little more comfortable, and then I'm going to sand this handle and finish it with beeswax. And then you want to finish it up by just buffing out the beeswax with a towel. Here they are, finished up. I'm going to be cleaning this up and putting some notches in it, and we'll see how these do. Before I get started, I'm just going to take my abrader stone and lightly round the tip, just a little bit, and also to abrade it and give it a little bit of a grip to it. So I'm starting with my slightly thicker pressure flaker here. I'm just going to go, you can see I've got some that are below the center line here, some good platforms. So I'm just going to rest right here, press in, and there we go. You can see we got a nice long flake. I'm going to shear this edge. So now I'm going to throw a couple of notches on here. And to do that, I'm going to use our smaller flaker. So I'm just going to abrade a little bit right around here where I'm going to put my side notches. And when I do notches, I like to work a little at a time. And what I mean by that is I'll take a couple flakes this way, and you want to make sure that your notch is wider than your flaker so that you don't accidentally hit it with the sides and break out a large piece. Clean up the sides as I go. Sometimes you'll get to the point where one of your notches gets messed up, and it's easier to make the other one match if they're at the same stage. If one is completely finished, then you may have to ruin a perfectly good notch just to make it match. Or you could go with an asymmetrical piece. It's completely up to you. I'm not doing any particular style of point, just kind of doing what looks cool. So here they are, all finished up. Now, this is a bopper that was made by Jim Keffer. He's the webmaster of the Puget Sound Nappers, and he makes some really nicely weighted and really pretty copper boppers. But the first one I owned was one that I had made, and it was very simple, just a dowel rod for a handle. But the main thing that's similar is the domed copper cap. Now this is a lead-filled copper bopper, so we're going to be working and melting lead. So if you don't want to be working with lead, because there's a lot of adverse health effects with working with lead, you can pick these up online for about $6 a piece. They're not expensive, so if you don't want to actually make it yourself, they're fairly inexpensive to buy. And I'll put some links in the description for some of the places that I like to buy flint-knapping supplies from. So to start, I'm going to be using a 3/4 inch copper plumbing cap. So this is actually a 1-inch diameter cap because the 3/4 is the nominal size. So I've got a small ball peen hammer. I'm going to place this on top. You could also use a dapping block, but this is good if you don't have something like that. And you just want to take your hammer and just start forming this cap around the ball peen hammer to get a nice dome shape. And there it is. So you can see now we've got a nice domed cap. So now I'm just going to use a file to level off the bottom of the cap. Now that the bottom is pretty much flat, I'm just going to put a little bevel at the bottom so there aren't any sharp edges. Now I'm just going to take a piece of 100 grit sandpaper and clean out the inside. And another thing I'm doing is scratching up the inside so that it will glue onto our handle a little better. Now that the cap has been shaped, I've gone ahead and placed it in my vise. I've made sure to level it off. And now I'm going to be melting some lead. This is 45 grams of hardened wheel weight lead. This is the type of lead that they use for balancing out car wheels. Jim Keffer, the webmaster for the Puget Sound Nappers, suggests using this because it doesn't deform as easily as normal soft lead. So this can be really dangerous, so you want to do this in good ventilation, I'm going to be wearing a respirator. I'm going to heat this up with a torch and then pour it into my cap. So here we go. Make sure to heat up the cap before you pour. While that's cooling, we can go ahead and start working on our handle. So here's my handle. It's just a 5-inch piece of dowel. I like a 5-inch handle because it gives me a little more leverage than a shorter one. So now I'm going to go ahead, use my rasp, and just round off the back end so it's comfortable to hold in the hand. Alright, looks pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and just sand this smooth to about 220 grit, and then we can attach the cap onto the handle. Now when you choose a dowel, you want to make sure that it just barely fits into your cap. You want it to be very snug, because we can drive this in a little bit and the cap will stretch. But if it's too loose, glue is not really going to hold this together very well. So it's a good fit. It will go in. So I'm just going to put some epoxy in here, and I'm just going to drive this in and let them set. All right, I've gone ahead and put epoxy in there. Just going to drive this in. Now I'm just going to use a mallet to drive it in. So now I'm just going to let that cure, and we're all finished. Alright, here's the bopper that we made. The glue's set, so now it's ready to go. I've got a piece of dacite, or dacite. It's basically just a slightly more waxy version of obsidian, but it's still volcanic glass. And I'm just going to work this down into something real quick, just to kind of demonstrate this bopper. So, here we go. So now I'm just going to finish this up with our pressure flakers and put a couple of notches in it. So here's the point all finished up. I think it turned out pretty nice. Now I wish it had been bigger, but I should have switched to something a little bit smaller like this as opposed to this, which is good for all of your sort of medium work. But when you get to your finished product, you really want something smaller like this. And this is a 1/2-inch cap. But here it is. So as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.